Welcome back to Virteva's Let's Talk podcast. It's Monday, August 4th, and it's episode 33. And on this month's episode, we're going to be taking a look at the new Copilot mode recently added to Edge for personal Microsoft accounts, talking about what to expect out of GPT-5, which will soon be finding its way into Copilot, probably over the next few months here. And we're also going to be taking kind of a quick peek back at Copilot Actions, or the new scheduled prompt capability that was added to Copilot earlier last month. All right, Chris, let's kick stuff off. Welcome back to the show. First and foremost, you haven't been here since I feel like it was our last podcast that we did at the end of last year when we visited Ignite. And bringing you back on is always exciting because, I talked with Holly about this last month, is there's not a lot going on in the Microsoft space right now as they're kind of preparing for summer vacations are going on. And we did get the announcement that Ignite is coming. Signups were a little bit earlier this year than I feel like they've been in previous years, and we're headed out there. So super excited about that. But what's new with you?
Just dealing with a lot of organizations looking to understand and rationalize how AI is going to impact them and how to prepare for it effectively, how to interpret the best way to apply it in their businesses. So that's been a lot of time, and part of the reason why it's hard to find time for these podcasts, in fact, because there is so much genuine interest and a groundswell of sort of fervor around just sorting it out and seeing what others are doing to be successful with it, sorting through all the different AI models, different approaches. Obviously, Copilot in our world tends to be the more prominent focus for a lot of these organizations, especially because it's the most readily accessible when you own Microsoft 365, for example, and have Copilot chat right in front of your users as a default. So it's been just a lot of work to work with all these organizations in a good way to help them think through it and really plan ahead.
Yeah, and I'm glad that you brought that up too, because that's something that Holly and I have really kind of been stressing on as we've kind of gone month to month on the podcast for the past few months here is, understanding that, we talk a lot about Microsoft 365 and the integrations that happen there, but there's also the Copilot that lives in Azure, that Azure AI Foundry component to it. And then on top of that, even there's also, the free version of Copilot outside of kind of like that paid more premium experience that if you're a business or an enterprise, everybody has access to that. So there is certainly a lot going on in the AI space. Microsoft just put their earnings out towards the middle of the past week. And, they continue are growing in the AI space. They don't always kind of say how much of that is actually the modern workspace versus how much of it is like Azure and AI Foundry and what they're doing there. But, I'm hoping that at some point down the line here, we're going to get a little bit more of a clear picture of how many of these Copilot 365 licenses are actually being sold, which is that big kind of golden premium purchase that, we hear a lot about, but we don't actually always see the numbers because of how the data kind of gets skewed.
It's just like it's so often the case, not just with Microsoft, but a lot of the tech companies that produce wares like this is when you start hearing them bandy about specific quantities and figures and numbers, it's because they finally crossed some threshold where it's undeniably successful. And until then, it's always somewhere in between or it's failing. I'm not suggesting Copilot's failing by any stretch, just that I suspect we'll hear more specific quantities and numbers as the threshold that they reach increases itself, and they can more acutely say, yeah, see, it's a wild, resounding success. Financially and sales wise.
There's a big difference between we have 100 million users using Microsoft 365 Copilot versus we have 10,000. Like that was kind of like the Teams premium conversation a couple of years ago, is they weren't releasing stats on that. And they said in a release note, I think it was in April last year, it's like, oh yeah, we have over 10,000 organizations using it. And I think that that's kind of going to be the inflection point where they actually feel confident saying that out loud, especially with these being annualized subscriptions. Is we also don't know what the fall off is for someone that signs up and then 6 months later they decide, we're not going to continue this going into the next budget year.
Right. And part of it, I think, as well, is going to be the idea that they we're already seeing them restructure a lot of their business units around AI, so
Yep.
that when they do their financial reporting fiscally and quarterly, so much it'll be even harder to demystify because it's like, well, here's the AI work or productivity space. Here's the AI data and sort of platform element, and it's all going to be couched within these AI categorical terms rather than a definitive. All of our AI stuff falls in one bucket, and here's the financial impact of that, both from a sales standpoint and a revenue standpoint and a profitability standpoint. It'll be sort of watered down by all of the different avenues through which they measure, probably by design to obscure it a little bit, but at the same time, it's an indicator of just how much Microsoft is all in on this
Yeah.
AI.
All in on AI at 100%.
Every unit within the company is basically formulated these days around AI.
All right. So let's go over to the first topic. And again, we're going to try and keep the show a little bit shorter this week just because there's not as much news floating around out there. But this was kind of an unexpected feature that rolled out just recently. July 28th is when this news post went up. I had heard that they were working on something like this, and this is supposed to be very similar to kind of like the ChatGPT operator mode, if you've ever used that, where you can allow, kind of Copilot to control the browser experience. This is on Rails to a degree. It's going to be able to do some things, but not everything you want it to do. I think that the operator got a little bit oversold, and they've actually released the new agent mode in ChatGPT now that combines operator with agent. I've used it a couple times, and my experience with it hasn't been blowing my hair back by any means. But this new feature coming to Copilot personal accounts, it is not available at the enterprise level yet, but we thought that it was important to talk a little bit about it here because oftentimes things that show up at the personal level do make their way into the more professional and business level. So we're going to kind of go over the news article here. And again, this will be down linked in the show notes. And then we're going to kind of do a demo in a separate browser window. So what Microsoft is kind of promising here, kind of delivering, is a new way to browse the web by letting Copilot in Copilot mode kind of do some of this work for you. So they've got some videos in the link here, but I think it'll be easier to show for our YouTube watchers exactly what it does. And they do call out here, this is available in some markets, but not all yet. So in America, we have access to this. Depending on different parts of the world where you may be listening, you may not have access to this yet, but giving Copilot the ability to control the browser will allow it to kind of go through multiple different tabs. Some of the examples that they give is it can take kind of everyday actions and kind of like go through and find you a hotel room and book that for you, or maybe it can find some activities around like an area that you're visiting. Interesting areas that I could see this happening if it did come to a business context is, hey, maybe it can go through and it can understand what meetings that you had and drop comments into like a planner task or something like that. Or maybe you want to have it do kind of an email follow-up, or you want it to do some research on a website for you and then kind of feed that email back to you in like a side panel. So there's a lot of different kind of interesting use cases here. I think that we're testing it is probably going to get to a little bit more of kind of like the root of what you can actually do with it. But again, I wanted to kind of just set the expectation that this is not going to be available for business. You don't have to go out of your way and lock anything down right now. I would probably advise that when this does start heading that way, keeping your eyes on the roadmap as an admin so that you understand what the capabilities are, what it can actually do with your data, how it can interact, and then, locking it down where it may make sense. So you can see on the screen here is it's kind of going through, it's creating a food recipe. This is just, again, kind of some of the boilerplate marketing that they have out there. And then how it kind of works to assist you, hand off tasks, and again, big emphasis on voice navigation lately. So some additional capabilities that are added into this as well, and we've talked about this, I think, all the way even back to kind of that Ignite show, is that Copilot Vision functionality that's available on Copilot Plus PCs is going to be added in here, where you can have something on your screen and then ask Copilot to give you more details about what it's actually seeing. And you can do this kind of in the Microsoft 365 smartphone app right now by turning the camera on and giving Copilot access to it. But this is taking it kind of a new layer with the ability to kind of do it directly within a browser window. So I'm going to pull open a secondary window. Again, you have to use a personal Microsoft account to actually be able to use the feature. So to start, you would kind of come to this Copilot in a AI powered mode and flip over this switch here that says, you are or are not in kind of Copilot mode. And then once you're in Copilot mode, it's going to kind of start to walk you through this tutorial to let you know what you can and can't do with it. So you're going to kind of go through. It's going to show you the new modern homepage. It's going to show you kind of those quick assist options that we talked about. You can use it. It'll walk you through what you can do with a handoff. Talks about voice navigation, and then tells you that, at the edge of all things, that you're always in control. So if any point in time you decide that Copilot mode isn't for you, you have the ability to go in and turn it off. And again, kind of the expectation is from an enterprise or a business standpoint, your admins would always be in control of allowing this to actually be used in the organization. So we're going to go in and try and use it. Okay, so we're over in the new user interface for Copilot. Again, we're looking at the personal version here, so it's going to look a little bit different than you may be seeing from a business context. And this is actually kind of a good lead-in too, as we are going to be talking about some of the ChatGPT 5.0 features that are coming. Is kind of defining the model has always been kind of a challenge for folks, as you don't know what model you want to add. And we're seeing some of that feature and functionality move over here in this new Copilot interface. So you have the ability to kind of just do your basic searches and chats, ask Copilot questions to answers, think deeper, and then actions, which is the new feature here. So we're going to move over to actions. And what we're going to do is we're going to ask Copilot to do some stuff on our behalf. So we're going to say, can you help me plan a trip to Europe? This did nothing of what I expected it was going to do, Chris. All right, so we're over in the demo context now. I've picked the action button here to allow me to kind of hand off and let Copilot take control. We're going to use one of kind of their prescribed or pre-built prompts here rather than diving too far deep in here. Chris and I have demoed this a little bit off screen, and it doesn't always, work exactly as intended. So just to kind of give you guys a little bit of an idea, since this is still pretty new, is we're going to ask Copilot to find a cheap flight using skyscanner.com. So you can see if you're watching here on YouTube is that it just popped open a side panel and it's kind of asking us, hi, I can help with that. What would you like to fly? Where would you like to fly from and what dates are you planning? So you have to kind of interact with it a little bit. Flying out of Buffalo, New York to Minnesota and first week of September. So you have to give it a little bit of direction, and now it should start to review that and then take actions on your behalf. So kind of what you're seeing here is it's opened up a virtual machine essentially in the center window here. We're going to see it start to actually take actions very similar to ChatGPT's agent that released in early July.
And what you're getting into kind of alludes a little bit to where ChatGPT 5, once that release is likely to be more sophisticated, is not just tell me information by virtue of a prompt I fed you, but be able to almost semi-autonomously take actions on my behalf. And I think that's where a lot of the models are heading, but certainly 5 is one of the more prominent components is that aspect where it can become more than just an assistant, almost like an operator on your behalf.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm glad that you bring that up too, because we've been talking about this on and off since both off podcast and during podcast about how like the Copilot actions stuff that was introduced at Ignite last year and started rolling out earlier this year in preview is supposed to be able to, an agent can talk to an agent and it can do tasks on your behalf and you can program automation in there. And these are the things that, got kind of talked up, but I haven't actually seen them in reality, at least even from a Copilot Studio function, actually start to really kind of like proffer themselves out there and do things. A lot of this stuff that got announced last year still feels like it's very much in like a private preview phase and hasn't fully rolled itself out, at least in the Copilot Studio context. I think that Copilot in Azure is a little bit further along, but also that's less low code and more, you need to know code.
Yeah.
So as this is kind of moving through, one other thing that I kind of wanted to bring up, and it's asking us a question here to interact with, is while we're actually seeing these things happen, at any point in time, if you want to interact, you can take control of this window from Copilot. So if you see it, kind of going off the rails and doing something that you don't want it to do, or you need to kind of get it back on track, is you can hit take control by just hovering over the window. You can click below it, or you can just stop it entirely and start over. So it's saying right here that it set up a search for round trip flights from Buffalo, New York to Minneapolis, departing September 1st and returning September 5th. It's asking, should it proceed? So it's always asking you every step of the way, hey, is it okay for me to keep going? So I'm going to tell it yes. And it's going to kind of continue on. And while it kind of goes through this, Chris, I think that we can probably continue to kind of have the conversation around what we can expect out of ChatGPT 5, which is supposedly going to be, releasing here within like the next couple of weeks. At a high level, and I listen to the OpenAI podcast I think it's on a bi-weekly basis. There should be a new episode here coming out either the day we're recording or within the next couple of days. Is Sam Altman has really kind of come out and said, well, what is the big takeaway? What's going to be new with GPT-5? And it's kind of come down to two different things. Is number one, he is expressing that this is going to be a generational leap, kind of like we saw from GPT-2 to GPT-3. Which means that it's less iterative and it's more bringing in new features, making it easier to use, and it's going to be a heck of a lot smarter on the back end. And I think that that's the first thing to kind of get excited about. The second thing is, and I think Microsoft has kind of addressed this a little bit better with Copilot than like OpenAI and ChatGPT has, is with OpenAI, if you have a subscription, or even if you don't, you're using the free version, is you have the ability to kind of go in there and change what model you're using. So you can use O1, or you can use O3, or you can use a mini model. Microsoft has done a better job about that, I think, for its users with Copilot by not putting the numbers in front of you and instead just kind of saying, hey, this is what so if you want to browse web pages or chat, select this button. If you want to create images, select this button. If you want to do deep research, select this button. And it's making the agentic pick for you with easier to understand nomenclature for an everyday user than saying, hey, you need to know these complicated O3-mini model types and make that selection. So Microsoft is making it a little bit easier. And I think that that's what we're seeing both in the preview of this model for some of this automation, but also kind of future kind of proofing some of this new stuff as it comes out, as we inevitably will see GPT-5 start to power Copilot on the back end. Anything to add to that, Chris, as I kind of push our prompt along a little bit here?
No, it's well said. And what's kind of interesting is how Microsoft has already come out and essentially announced that as soon as GPT-5 is released, their intention is to have that readily in Copilot as well. Where in the past we've seen GPT releases have somewhat of a delay before they ended up in Copilot. In this case, they seem pretty bullish on the idea that it's going to be there right away. And yeah, to your point, it's a common both confusion and frustration point in AI usage that certainly I've seen with users that aren't necessarily on top of what all these different models represent, what functionality differentials exist between them, and to be able to allow the AI to just decipher it on their behalf and default to the best submodel to accommodate the request in that moment or as part of a chain of entries or interactions is always it was always going to be that maturity step that was necessary for this to be more practical for day-to-day usage by the masses, so to speak, and particularly in a corporate context where inevitably then there can be better guardrails placed around what type of results are produced, where you don't have to account for all the different submodels. You can say no. Whenever this thing's producing things, stick within the parameters of what this organization wants to allow for universally.
Yeah. And Chris, I don't know if you caught this too while you were talking, is so a kind of a pop-up prompt showed up in the center of the screen that needed to be click continue. We got a similar one up here right now to accept cookies, it looks like. And Copilot got through that first one. It actually says too in the right-hand sidebar that, hey, I saw the prompt, I interacted with it, I clicked continue. It also just accepted all cookies for browsing. So it was able to push through. The one thing that it hasn't been able to do is it hasn't been able to actually book the flight for me. It basically told me, hey, I'd like to do it for you, but I'm unable. It's asking me again. I think that we're going to run into the same challenge here is it's not going to be able to do it because you would probably actually need to be logged in, although it looks like it's getting a little bit further this time. And
Safety
it
risk.
has detected safety risks. So it's asking me if it's okay to proceed because you can see that it's redirecting to a different URL here. So I'm going to tell it to proceed. We're going to continue pushing it and see how much further we can get it. But ultimately, I think that what's probably going to end up happening here is I would have to take control of the browser at this point, and I would have to push it through. So yeah, it's stuck in kind of a circular loop at this point where it can't do it for me. So I'm going to hit take control. It's going to pop that out and actually allow me to start clicking buttons in the browser so you can see that I'm interacting with it directly now. And then this would be, hey, I need to put some email address information in, a phone number, my TSA pre-check information. And then from there, I would actually be able to fully check out. Now, this could be like a one-time thing where you just need to take control to add in or log into a website, and then you could give it back control and let it push to the next step. But I think for all intents and purposes of the demos, we kind of showed off, what these type of capabilities are like right now and, kind of what to expect on the personal side. But kind of from a context standpoint is, if this did move over to a business is, can you empower team members on your side to be able to use functionality like this to, complete healthcare claims? Can you enable a project manager to allow it to kind of go through and assess a project plan and take actions on their behalf by giving it instructions? So this is kind of the next evolution of some of this generative AI, where a lot of it's been, hey, we have to know how to prompt it, how to set goals and expectations. Now it's starting to do more for us in an automated kind of context. And this is the next leap. Now, how mature is this when it first rolls out of the box is going to be another thing, but that's something that I think that we'll be keeping our eyeball on as we lead into Ignite in November. So that's kind of a high level overview of it. Chris, anything to add to it before we kind of move on to the next topic here?
No, just stating the obvious that it's pretty clear why this is going to need some more time and attention before it goes to the enterprise side. Because when you're having AI examine the contents of a screen and act upon the things that it can see, or it has the capability to act upon it, organizations are going to want sensitive data to necessarily find its way through this and
Yeah.
accidentally or deliberately get exposed or processed or scraped or anything else. And so I have to think inevitably as Copilot in the enterprise context adopts this, it'll be because Microsoft has spent some time and effort to prepare for that aspect of sensitive data exposure.
Yeah, very similar to the kind of like the Windows recall feature that we did a video on earlier in the year, and I'll link it up here. Is from an enterprise and a business standpoint, probably not a whole lot of people are buying Copilot Plus PCs yet, but inevitably you're going to hit a point where you probably can't get around buying a Windows machine that doesn't have an MPU on it, and that's something that you need to be prepared for. Microsoft has turned that off. They've added additional security layers with biometrics on it, but in your enterprise, you still might just not want to have it on. And that's a kind of a governance and a center of excellence conversation you need to have internally within your org to make those decisions, not only with recall, but also with some of these new automative actions in Copilot. All right. So I wanted to kind of go over one more thing today. We kind of already walked through some of the OpenAI news, but one thing that we've missed recently is we haven't talked a whole lot about Copilot actions and the new scheduling feature. This got released kind of in preview back in March and April, and then very quickly got pulled back on, either because it was eating up too many resources on the back end, or Microsoft just felt that it wasn't matured. This at one point kind of was its own subsection here on your Copilot menu, and it is now kind of fed into the prompt. So I'm going to type in a quick prompt as a project manager to have it help create me a status report. And then I'm going to show you how you could use this same status report at a customer on a weekly basis to, like, at the end of your week on a Friday, produce it, and then you could send it out as an email. So let me type this up and I'll fast forward and then we'll come right back. You can see that I attached a recurring meeting that I have on a weekly basis for this advisory service that we've been working on with this organization. I'm going to blur some stuff out in the screen just to kind of, protect their identities. But the prompt would kind of set itself up. It would go through, it would create the status report for you. As you can see that it's kind of building itself out right now. It'll give you some action items. It'll talk about who's been invited to the call, what the review items are for that. It'll give you some additional supporting materials. So for this one, for example, is I have a number of different kind of Word and OneNote documents that are available out there that I want to reference back to. You can ask it to go into more detail, but it kind of put this together. So I like this. I want to copy it. I want to paste it in the Outlook, make a couple of changes, and then I want to send it to the customer. But I don't want to come in here every week or for every single one of my projects that I'm working on and have to type in that same prompt. So kind of the previous way to do this is you would kind of come in here and save your prompt by clicking on the save prompt button, and then you just paste it back in. Now what you do is you have the option to schedule the prompt. So if I click on schedule the prompt, is I can basically say, send me these results in Copilot chat once a week or however many times I want. I can do it on a daily basis. I can just do it on a weekly. I can do it on a monthly. And I can say what day of the week and what time I want it to do it at. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to say once a week on a Friday at 10 o'clock in the morning, I want you to send me, I want the same prompt to go off, and I want it to create that status report based on my meetings for the week. So what it will do is it will create that for you. It will show up in Copilot chat, and there'll kind of be like a little pill icon next to it showing that it's an unread chat. And then you'd have to go in, copy it, drop it in an email. Where this differs a little bit from what Copilot Actions was able to do is Copilot Actions could actually send you a Teams message on it, or potentially send you an email, or or incorporate a Power Automate script into it. I think that Microsoft is still evaluating the uses here, and we may see it expand back out to be a little bit more powerful. But it's not quite there yet, and I think that they're still doing some testing. So we're almost beta testing this at the moment. You also used to be able to do this on an unlimited basis, which I'm sure every single person that created a Copilot action did. But now you can only limit it to 15. So if you're doing this on a weekly basis, it'll do it for up to 15 weeks. If you're doing it on a monthly basis, it'll do it for up to 15 months. So we'll leave it at the default. We'll save it. And then what it's doing here is it's kind of behind the scenes, it's creating a workflow event. These used to be called Teams workflows. Now they're just kind of called Microsoft 365 workflows. And if you needed to go in and edit that, you'd be able to edit it through the Workflows app that's in Teams, or kind of through the back end on the Power Platform. So kind of let it do its thing here. It'll save. But yeah, as you came in and needed to make changes to it, or wanted to add additional language into your prompt, is you'd be able to come in here, click on your prompt, and then work with it. You can see that it finished here, and then that prompt is active. But yeah, if at any point in time you needed to actually come in here and interact with it, you can certainly edit your prompt and make changes to it. All right. So Chris, I think we covered what we wanted to cover. Again, we're trying to keep the show a little bit shorter this week. Typically performs a little bit better on YouTube that way as well. And also, who wants to listen to me and you talk for 2 hours at a time?
Once we have more to
But
say, maybe.
yeah, I think that we'll probably have more to say as we kind of get a little bit closer to the September and October timeframe. I think that there is inevitably a wave announcement coming up here on new features coming to Copilot ahead of Ignite. So as we get closer to September and October and November, I think that we will expand out and be talking about more kind of new features coming to Copilot in the context of Microsoft 365 Copilot, as well as some more agentic capabilities that are going to be coming down the line here soon. So all that said, Chris, thank you again for making the time to come on the show. Hope to have you hope to have you back a little bit sooner than 6-7 months again. But you and I know are going to be traveling out to San Francisco for Ignite, along with some of our management core for Ignite. So hoping to kind of get everybody gathered into a conference room or a hotel room again next year to talk through some of the new features that get announced and some of the capabilities and how you'll be able to utilize them within your business. So that being said, I'll take us to the outro. And again, Chris, thanks for being here.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks again for tuning in this week. If you want to learn more about the new Copilot experiences, you can visit the links in the show notes as always. If you have any questions or need help with implementing or training around Microsoft 365 modern work, security, or Copilot features, Virteva is a managed IT service and security provider, and we can help you with all your IT needs. To contact us, you can email us at letstalk@virteva.com, or you can visit our website at www.virteva.com. Thanks again for tuning in, and if you made it this far, please don't forget to hit those like and subscribe buttons, and have a great rest of your day. Take it easy.